He heard it before he saw it, a faint cry drifting through the winter wind, fragile and small, from somewhere beneath the bridge on 18th Avenue. At first he thought it was the wind itself, until the sound turned into words. A child's voice. A whisper. Please. Just $50. Following the sound, Michael Harrington stopped cold. Under the overpass stood a 6-year-old girl. Her dress torn her face, streaked with mud, and melting snow, clutching a pink bicycle as if it could shield her from the world. The cardboard sign beside her read shaky and uneven. Selling my bike. Need food. Her fingers trembled. Her lips were blue, yet she waited, the kind of waiting that only happens when hope is stronger than fear. He stepped closer, snow crunching beneath his shoes. When her eyes met his, he uttered one sentence that would change both their lives forever. But not yet. You'll want to hear what came after. Leave a comment below and tell me which city you're watching from. Let's keep sharing these heartwarming stories, stories that remind us of kindness, redemption, and hope. Now, let's begin. Above, a black Rolls-Royce glided across the icy street, its polished body catching the faint light. Inside sat Michael Harrington, 41, founder and CEO of Harrington Technologies. A man the press called the architect of success. To most, he was untouchable. To himself, he was unfinished. 3 years earlier, he'd lost his 5-year-old daughter Emily to a heart defect no amount of money could fix. Since then, silence had become his closest companion. Every child's laugh felt like a wound reopening. He had built an empire of noise to drown the quiet, but grief has a memory of its own. From the driver's seat, Victor Hayes, his chauffeur of 10 years, watched him. He'd seen that look before, when past pain collided with present chance. Victor said nothing as Michael opened the car door and stepped out into the falling snow. The wind cut sharp, carrying the smell of metal and frost. Michael approached the girl slowly, hands raised so she wouldn't flinch. "Hey there," he said gently. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The girl's mittened fingers twisted the sign. "I'm selling my bike, sir. Mommy needs money for food." The words struck harder than any headline he'd ever read. He crouched to her height, seeing up close the freckles on her nose, the brave tilt of her chin. "What's your name?" he asked. "Chloe Wallace." The name landed like déjà vu. Wallace. Somewhere in his memory, that name was written in ink on a file he had once signed without looking. He nodded slowly. "And how much are you asking?" $50, she said, voice thin but steady. Michael almost smiled, not at her, but at the smallness of that number against the greatness of her heart. He pulled out his wallet, fingers stiff from the cold. "Tell you what," he said softly, this bike looks special. Special things deserve a special price." He placed 3 crisp $100 bills into her mitten. Her eyes widened, disbelief breaking into joy. 300. "But sir, that's too much." He smiled faintly, his breath a cloud in the freezing air. "No child," he said quietly, "should ever have to stand in the snow like this." For a heartbeat she stared, then dropped the sign and threw her arms around his neck. The hug was quick, fierce, full of warmth he hadn't felt in years. "Thank you, Mr. Mommy's going to be so happy." She ran toward the apartment building across the street, her laughter echoing through the snow. Michael remained still, the world fading to quiet. He looked down at the bicycle, its pink frame bright against the grey slush. He lifted it carefully, almost reverently, and set it in the trunk of the car. Victor watched through the mirror as Michael sat back behind the wheel, staring at the road ahead. "Where to, sir?" he asked softly. Michael's voice came low, distant. "Back to the office. I need to check a name." The driver nodded, pulling into traffic as the snow thickened. Behind them, the wind erased the small footprints beneath the bridge, but not the promise left in the man's heart. He didn't know it yet, but that single act of kindness was about to rewrite everything he thought he knew about loss. The snow was heavier that afternoon, turning the streets of Spokane into rivers of white. Michael sat in his Mercedes engine, running the pink bicycle resting on the back seat. He couldn't shake the sound of that small voice, "Mommy needs money for food." It echoed through the quiet of his car, louder than the hum of the heater. He should have driven away, he told himself that. He had a meeting in 30 minutes, a schedule packed with decisions worth millions. But some part of him refused to let the day end like that. So instead of turning toward the downtown, he turned back toward the little apartment complex across the street. He parked by the cracked curb. The building looked even smaller up close, paint peeling a broken porch light flickering weakly. Through the thin walls came the faint sound of a child's laughter, followed by a woman's voice, soft, tired, but gentle. Michael hesitated, snow gathering on his shoulders, before finally knocking. The door opened a few inches. Anna Wallace. Her hair was pulled back, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. Behind her, the living room was warm, but nearly empty. No tree for Christmas, no decorations, only a few crayons scattered on the table. When she saw the man standing there in his wool coat, her face tensed. "Yes, I just met your daughter outside," Michael began. Anna's posture stiffened instantly. "What happened? Is she hurt?" No, she's fine," he said quickly. "She was trying to sell her bicycle." Anna's lips parted in disbelief, then pressed shut as her eyes filled. "She promised she wouldn't do that again," she whispered, half to herself. "I told her everything would be okay." Michael's voice softened. "She just wanted to help you." He reached into his coat pocket and handed her the envelope of money. She thought $50 could fix everything. "I gave her 300. Please don't be upset with her." Anna stared at the envelope like it was something dangerous. "I can't accept this," she said firmly. "You don't know us. I didn't give it to you." "Out of pity," Michael replied. "I gave it because your daughter reminded me what real courage looks like." Before Anna could answer, a sharp sound split the air, a child's cough from the next room, deep and raw. Michael's eyes shifted toward the hallway. "Is she sick?" Anna nodded weakly. "Bronchitis, I think. She's been getting worse, but the clinic needs insurance. I've been trying to save enough for antibiotics." Without a word, Michael took out his phone. "I know a doctor at St. Luke's. Let me take her there." Anna shook her head. "No, we'll manage." Michael met her gaze, steady and earnest. "You don't have to manage alone anymore." Moments later, they were outside again. Michael wrapped his scarf around Chloe, who blinked sleepily against the snow. When he lifted her into his arms, she whispered, "Are you going to sell my bike, mister?" Michael smiled sadly. "No, sweetheart. I'm going to keep it safe for you." The girl hesitated. "You won't leave us, right?" He looked straight into her frightened eyes and answered, firm as a vow, "No one is leaving you." The hospital doors slid open, spilling white light onto the icy pavement. Inside, nurses hurried toward them, questions flying. "Are you the father?" one asked. Michael froze for just a second, then nodded. "Yes, I am." As Chloe disappeared behind the curtains of the emergency room, Michael stood still, heart pounding. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about markets or money. He was thinking about a promise. Night had settled over Spokane when Michael drove the two of them home. Snowflakes tapped against the windshield, fading into the hum of the engine. In the back seat, Chloe slept soundly, her small hand curled around her mother's. Beside her, Anna stared out the window, silent, torn between gratitude and disbelief. When the Harrington mansion came into view, Anna's breath caught. The house glowed like a lantern in the dark, tall windows, spilling light onto the snow. She hesitated on the front steps. "This isn't right," she whispered. "We don't belong here." Michael gave a small smile. "Just for tonight. Until Chloe's better." Inside, warmth rushed to meet them. Cedar firelight, the faint scent of cinnamon. Chloe blinked awake eyes wide at the high ceilings and golden glow. "It's so big," she murmured. Michael chuckled softly. "It feels smaller when you live in it." Then a voice came from the staircase. "Michael." A woman in a silk robe stood there, Clara, his wife, beautiful, poised, and cold as glass. Her expression changed the moment she saw Anna and the child. "What is this?" Michael's tone stayed calm. "They needed a place for the night. The girl's been sick." Clara's eyes flashed. "You brought strangers into our home without asking me. I couldn't leave them in the cold," he said quietly. "This isn't a charity, Michael." She snapped the echo sharp against marble walls. Chloe shrank behind her mother, gripping her coat. "Mommy," she whispered, "did we do something wrong?" Anna knelt, brushing snow from her daughter's hair. "No, sweetheart, not at all." Clara crossed her arms. "You're making a mistake." Michael's voice softened, but didn't bend. "If helping them is a mistake, I'll live with it." For a long moment, the house stood in silence, only the crackle of the fire between them. Finally, Clara turned away, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't go through this again." The words hung heavy unfinished as she disappeared up the stairs. Michael exhaled slowly, then turned to Anna. "I'm sorry," he said. "She lost someone too." Anna gave a small nod, holding Chloe close. "So did we." He led them to a quiet guest room. The bed was warm, the lights dimmed, soft and golden. As he tucked the blanket around Chloe, she looked up at him sleepily. "You won't leave us, right?" Michael smiled faintly, brushing her hair aside. "Not tonight," he said. When she closed her eyes, he stood watching her for a long moment, realizing the sound of her breathing had already filled a silence he hadn't known was breaking. Morning light crept through the mansion's tall windows, pale and cold against the marble floors. Michael sat in his study, the pink bicycle leaning quietly by the fireplace. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Chloe in the snow holding that sign. And every time he heard the same name echo through his thoughts, Anna Wallace. He opened his laptop and typed it into the company database. The result appeared instantly: terminated financial misconduct. Case 473AW. Michael frowned. He remembered the case vaguely. It had been part of a massive downsizing initiative 2 months earlier. A cost-saving decision. His stomach twisted. He picked up the phone. "Linda, get me HR. Now." Within the hour, Deborah Fields, the HR director, stood in front of his desk. Her usual confidence had melted under his stare. "Mr. Harrington," she began carefully, "if this is about Anna Wallace." The file was handled according to protocol. Protocol, Michael cut in, voice low but sharp. She was fired for misconduct that she didn't commit. Was there even an investigation? Deborah swallowed hard. There was a system error during the software migration. 2 employee IDs were switched, but by the time we found out, the termination was already processed. The COO said to move on. Michael's pulse spiked. The COO, Janet O'Connor. Deborah nodded. She said reopening it would undermine the efficiency metrics we'd already reported to the board. The words hit him like a slap. Efficiency metrics. An innocent woman had lost her job, her stability, her dignity, because numbers looked better that way. And he had signed those quarterly reports without ever knowing. Get me everything he ordered quietly. Emails, reports, internal memos. I want it all. When Deborah left, the office fell silent again except for the faint crackle from the fireplace. Michael turned toward the bicycle. Its paint, chipped and dull, seemed to catch the firelight like a quiet accusation. He remembered Chloe's smile, her tiny hands clutching money she thought would save her mother. And beneath that image, another memory surfaced, his own daughter Emily lying in a hospital bed years ago, whispering through the oxygen mask, "Daddy, don't work tonight." He hadn't listened. And the next morning, she was gone. Now another child had crossed his path, one he couldn't ignore. Michael stood jaw tight and grabbed his coat. If Janet O'Connor had known about the mistake and buried it, she would answer for it. He wasn't going to let another life be crushed by numbers and excuses. As he stepped into the hallway, Clara's voice followed him softly. "Michael, where are you going?" He paused at the door. "To fix something I should have seen a long time ago." She looked at him, torn between anger and fear. "Be careful. Janet doesn't lose without fighting back." Michael gave a faint smile, not defiant but resolute. "I'm not fighting for profit anymore," he said. "I'm fighting for them." The next morning, headlines hit like lightning. Millionaire CEO under fire for secret charity scandal. Insider sources, Harrington misused company funds to aid ex-employee. Michael stared at the glowing screen in disbelief. Someone had leaked internal documents, not the truth, but fragments twisted to look like guilt. Within hours, the company's stock began to slide, board members demanding answers. And at the center of the storm was one name whispered with venomous satisfaction, Janet O'Connor. Inside the boardroom, cameras flashed as reporters swarmed the glass walls outside. Janet stood at the far end of the table, arms crossed, voice icy calm. "I warned you, Michael," she said, her tone coated in pity. "You've let your emotions compromise this company. HR records, unauthorized payments. It doesn't look good." Michael shot her a hard look. "You doctored those numbers. You buried an innocent employee to protect your image." Janet smiled faintly. "You have no proof of that. And even if you did, who would believe a man accused of funneling money to a woman he conveniently decided to save?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If this is how you measure success, then I don't want any part of it." "Then step down," Janet said smoothly, "before the board makes that decision for you." By afternoon, the headlines had multiplied. TV crews parked outside the mansion gates. The phone rang endlessly, investors, lawyers, journalists. And through it all, Michael sat in the study staring into the fire, hearing the faint echo of Chloe's voice. "You won't leave us, right?" Anna called, once her voice trembling. Is it true, Michael? They're saying you used company money for us. He closed his eyes. No. But that won't stop them from saying it. I should have never let you help, she whispered. Now you're losing everything because of us. He gripped the phone tighter. Listen to me. None of this is your fault. Don't let them make you feel that way. But when he hung up, the silence felt heavier than before. That night, Clara found him sitting in the dark, a single lamp lighting his face. You can't fight the entire system, she said quietly. Michael didn't look up. I built that system, and now it's swallowing the people it was meant to protect. Clara hesitated, her voice softer now. I see how you look at that little girl. She reminds you of Emily, doesn't she? Michael didn't deny it. When Chloe hugged me, I remembered what it felt like to matter to someone who didn't care about wealth or power. I won't lose that again. Outside, thunder rolled faintly over the frozen city, the kind that promised a storm before dawn. As lightning flashed across the snow, Michael made his decision. He would expose Janet, even if it meant burning everything down with her. Snow blanketed Spokane again the morning of the hearing. The courthouse stood grey against the sky, its steps slick with ice, its flags stiff in the wind. Michael adjusted his coat as he stepped out of the car, flashes from cameras cutting through the fog. Beside him walked Anna, pale but composed, and Chloe bundled in a red scarf, holding her mother's hand. The building's echo swallowed them as they entered. Inside, a low hum of reporters and lawyers filled the corridors. Every headline outside had already made up its mind. CEO faces ethics probe. Former employee accuses company of ruin. But the real story hadn't been told yet. The courtroom was stark fluorescent lights washing everything in cold colour. Judge Caroline Prescott presided stern, known for fairness. Janet O'Connor sat at the defence table, immaculate in her grey suit eyes, sharp as razors. Across from her, Michael sat with his lawyer, hands clasped jaw tight. Anna was next to him, trying not to tremble. The proceedings began. Janet's attorney spoke first, polished, precise, rehearsed. Mr. Harrington violated fiduciary duty, he declared. Using company funds to aid a terminated employee with whom he had a personal relationship. Whispers rippled through the room. Then it was Michael's turn. His voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of what he'd lost. I didn't steal from my company, he said. I gave my own money to a mother and child who were victims of a system mistake, a mistake I signed off on without knowing. He turned toward Janet. But someone did know, and she buried the truth. Janet smiled thinly. Accusations without evidence, Michael. You, of all people, should understand documentation. His lawyer rose. We have documentation. He handed the judge a folder, copies of internal emails, time-stamped spreadsheets, and a flagged report. An HR associate named Peter Lawson submitted this report 6 weeks ago, he said. It clearly shows employee IDs were switched during a software migration. Miss O'Connor's office rejected the correction. Janet's composure cracked for the first time. That report was never verified. She snapped. Michael met her eyes. You verified it yourself. You just chose to ignore it. The judge flipped through the evidence silently. Then she looked up. Miss O'Connor, did you or did you not instruct HR to close the Wallace case, despite knowing of the ID error? The room went still. Janet hesitated just long enough. Efficiency, she said finally. We were cutting losses. One case wouldn't have changed anything. Anna's voice broke the silence, soft but shaking. It changed everything for me. All heads turned. She stood slowly clutching Chloe's small hand. Because of that one case, I lost my job, my home, and nearly my child's health. You call it efficiency, but to us, it was survival. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't look away. I don't want money. I just want my name cleared for my daughter to see that the truth still matters. The judge nodded solemnly. You'll have that. Then came the moment no one expected. Your Honour, Michael said quietly. May the child speak, the courtroom murmured in surprise. Chloe stepped forward, tiny boots squeaking against the floor. She looked at the judge with wide, steady eyes. Miss Prescott, she said softly, my mummy didn't do anything bad. She's the best mummy. She only cried because she couldn't buy food. Mr. Michael gave me money for my bike, but he also gave my mummy hope. Judge Prescott's expression softened. And why are you here today, Chloe? Chloe thought for a moment. Because grown-ups make mistakes, but they can fix them if they care enough. For a few seconds no one breathed, even Janet lowered her gaze. When the ruling came, the gavel's crack felt like thunder. The court finds in favour of Mr. Harrington and Miss Wallace. Janet O'Connor is hereby suspended pending investigation for willful misconduct. Gasps filled the room. Michael exhaled deeply, tension finally breaking from his shoulders. Anna squeezed his hand, her own trembling. And Chloe, bright, fearless. Chloe smiled up at him and whispered, Told you. God was watching. Michael smiled back through tears. Yes, sweetheart, he whispered. He was. Outside snow fell again, but this time it felt clean. Not the storm of chaos, but the kind that covers scars with peace. The courthouse doors opened to a rush of cold air and flashing lights. But this time the headlines weren't cruel. They read Truth Restored CEO clears wrongful termination case. Anna Wallace vindicated. System error exposed. For once the noise didn't matter. Michael stepped into the snow beside Anna and Chloe, breathing in the clean, icy air. Anna turned toward him, voice soft. You didn't have to fight for us like that. He smiled faintly. I wasn't just fighting for you. I was fighting for the person I used to be before I forgot what mattered. Chloe slipped her mittened hand into his. Can we go home now? The word home caught him off guard. He glanced at Anna. She smiled, hesitant but real. She means your place. Michael chuckled. Then yes, sweetheart. Let's go home. That evening, the Harrington mansion didn't feel hollow anymore. The fire burned bright, laughter echoed faintly from the kitchen. Chloe sat at the counter, legs swinging as she coloured with crayons. Clara stood near the stove, stirring a pot of soup. Her movements were cautious at first, as if relearning something once forgotten. When Michael entered, she looked up, eyes softer than he'd seen in years. I saw the news, she said. You did the right thing. He hesitated. Even if it cost the company everything, Clara shook her head. It didn't cost what really counts. She glanced toward Chloe, who was humming quietly while drawing flowers. I didn't think I could open my heart again, Clara admitted. But that little girl, she reminded me what love looks like when it's still pure. Anna entered, wiping her hands on a towel. The soup's ready, she said, a little shy. For the first time, Clara smiled at her. Then, let's eat. They gathered around the table, not as strangers, but as people held together by something unspoken. Steam rose from the bowls. The smell of bread filled the room. Chloe giggled as Michael tried to blow on his soup too fast. For a moment, everything felt simple again. After dinner, as the firelight danced across the walls, Clara set her hand gently on Anna's. No child in this house, she said softly, will ever go hungry again. Anna's eyes welled up. Thank you, she whispered. Michael looked at both women, his voice quiet but sure. "I thought I was saving them," he said. "Turns out they were saving me." Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside, warmth had finally found its way home. A year later, Spokane woke to spring sunlight and the sound of children's laughter drifting through Maple Street Park. Where an abandoned warehouse once stood, a new building gleamed with warm brick and bright windows. Harbor Light Community Center, a safe place for children without homes to find warmth, food, and a future. Inside, the grand opening buzzed with voices and music. Reporters gathered near the stage, cameras flashing as the sign was unveiled. Founded by Michael Harrington, Anna Wallace, and family. Michael stood at the podium looking out at the crowd. Behind him hung a framed photograph, a little girl in the snow holding a cardboard sign that read, "For sale. Need food." It wasn't there to evoke pity. It was there to remind everyone what love could build from loss. He cleared his throat, voice steady. "A year ago, I thought success was measured by numbers. Then I met a little girl who showed me that the truest wealth isn't what we keep, it's what we give." His gaze shifted toward Chloe, sitting in the front row between Anna and Clara. She waved shyly, her pink bicycle gleaming beside her fully restored, new paint, new ribbons, same heart. The crowd applauded. Anna's eyes shimmered with quiet pride. Clara smiled softly, a hand resting over her heart. When the ceremony ended, Chloe ran to Michael, hugging him tight around the waist. "Papa Michael," she said, beaming, "can the other kids ride my bike too?" He knelt down, smiling. "It's yours, sweetheart. But if sharing it makes you happy, then it's everyone's." Chloe grinned. "Then it's not just a bike anymore. It's a lucky bike." Michael looked at her, at the little girl, who had turned his regret into redemption, and felt something shift again. Something quiet, but everlasting. "Maybe it always was," he whispered. As the sun dipped low over the city, light spilled through the center's glass windows, like gold on water. Children's laughter echoed down the halls, filling every corner with life. For the first time, Michael realized that the mansion on the hill had never been his real home. It was here, among the laughter, the warmth, and one pink bicycle, that had changed everything. As night fell over Spokane, the city lights shimmered like a sea of quiet stars. Inside Harbor Light Center, the laughter of children slowly faded into bedtime whispers. Chloe's pink bicycle rested by the window, its chrome gleaming beneath the soft glow of a single lamp. For Michael, that light had come to mean everything, a reminder that even the smallest kindness could outshine the darkest regret. He stood by the glass, watching snow begin to fall again. It didn't feel cold anymore. Behind him, Anna and Clara were tidying up after the evening meal, their voices mingling in calm conversation. Family, not the kind built by blood or wealth, but by choice. His thoughts drifted back to that day in the snow. A trembling hand, a cardboard sign, and a whisper that had broken through his silence. Sometimes it doesn't take a miracle to change a life. Just a moment of seeing someone truly seeing them and choosing to stay. He turned off the last light in the hallway, Chloe already asleep with her arms wrapped around a stuffed bear. Before leaving the room, he whispered softly, "Sleep well, sweetheart. No more dark." Michael, Anna, and Chloe finally found the home they once thought was lost, and along the way they rediscovered warmth, trust, and love. But what about you if one day you saw a child reaching out for help? Would you open your arms? Do you believe that even one small act of kindness can change the course of a life? And if today you feel tired or alone, please remember there are still stories that heal, still hearts that care, and light waiting quietly around you.